I was talking to a friend of mine who is a smoker, and maybe you know Rory Sutherland at Ogilvy.
Yeah, we had him here a few months ago.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
he loves that vape pipe, man.
Yes,
he's always puffing on
he
that
sure
thing.
does.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how we've been here before, right? That when I was growing up, I grew up in the 1980s, and I remember in my household, my parents had ashtrays in the house. All over the house, we had ashtrays. My mom never smoked. My dad quit smoking years before. Why do we have these ashtrays? Because back in the 1980s, if you came over to someone's house, you expected to just light up in their living room. Can you imagine what would happen if someone came over to your house and just lit up a cigarette? That'd be ridiculous, right? You kick them out.
Yeah.
How did that happen? You say, okay, well, legislation made it smoking less palatable. Well, that's not exactly true. There's never been any law that said you can't smoke in someone's home. So what changed? What changed is called a social antibody. Paul Graham coined this term, a social antibody, meaning people, societies, when they see a behavior that doesn't benefit the society, that harms the society, they change their norms. They change our behaviors of what's acceptable. So just like we did with cigarettes, we see this behavior of using a phone in a setting in a social setting, in a meeting, interrupting people. This is already happening. And I think it's okay that we facilitate that process. So we need the early adopters. We need the people who are change agents who say, I am indistractable. I am the kind of person who, yes, I do some weird things. I don't respond to emails within 30 seconds. I put this screen sign on my monitor, right? But this is who I am. I am indistractable in order to make this acceptable so that in hopefully a few more years, just like how we went from smoking being acceptable to now being unacceptable. And at first, you know, what Rory told me, he said, you know, back in the 80s, if you walked into somebody's home and they said, please don't smoke here, that person was weird. That person was the pariah. That's the kind of person who, oh, what's this weirdo telling me not to smoke? And we're going to go through the same exact process when it comes to our gadgets. You know, the early adopters are already doing this stuff. They're becoming indistractable. And by spreading these social antibodies, this is how we get better.
Yeah, I love it. I'm all for spreading those things. And we see people doing it. People go out to dinner now and they stack the phones on the table to where nobody can pull them out. If I'm ever with someone and they pull out their phone, I will not be hanging out with them ever again. I'll literally say something. I'll be like, excuse me, like my time's really important.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's amazing.
You want me to give you something to say that's...
yeah, go ahead, tell me.
Yeah, so there's a section on how to build indistractable relationships. And yeah, we see this problem all the time. Somebody's around the table and they're using their device and it's maddening. There's actually a term for it now. It's called phubbing, phone snubbing.
Oh, really? Phubbing?
Yeah, phubbing. It's a new word that was invented actually a few years ago.
It's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
I mean, can imagine if like someone like, you know, pulled out something else and started doing it, but it's if a phone, it's okay. But like, what if they?
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
So here's what you do. The problem is if you're too direct, then you can offend people. And we have to understand too that we may not know what's going on the other side of the screen. What if it's really an emergency? So there's one question we can ask that politely nudges people to do the right thing without with giving them an out if it really is an emergency. And this question is, I see you're on your phone, is everything okay? And by genuinely, but with real curiosity, because you don't know, there might be something terrible happening on the other end of that phone where they need to respond to right away. They'll either say, you know what, I'm really sorry, this thing is happening right now, my kid is sick, something is happening, I need to take care of it, and they'll leave the table and take care of it. Or 9 times out of 10, they'll say, oh, you know what, you're right, let me just put that away. So this is how we begin to spread these social antibodies.
Right, okay, good, I like that, we can use that.
Is everything okay?
Is everything okay, yeah. And look, I've been using weird versions of this for a long time. I remember when I first read Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek, he had something called an email diet. And I started checking my email like once a day or never before noon. He has something called maker mode and manager mode. We used to do that here where we all lock into maker mode and we try to create something for a few hours as opposed to reacting to what's out there.